I don't play nearly enough indie games, so I played one and the demo of its sequel. It's pretty heavy, so trigger warning, just all of them really. And maybe even flashing lights too. That one's not so much a trigger as like, how do peanut allergy people attend middle school, right? Born of a Dream is the story of a young person adrift in a very desolate world who churns through hordes of nightmares to find something resembling peace. It's easy to condense in a sentence, but the game resists simplification. Just take a look. Its aesthetic is stellar, something totally unique and in tune with the language of the medium. Video games are spun up in plenty of different threads, sprites, polygons, a lot of blocky shapes in general, but this game bucks those conventions with a jittering, sketchy style. You might be tempted to critique this kind of presentation with fears that it could be unparsable to some, but you'd be surprised how solidly it conveys the player's place in the action during play. It's a thoroughly kinetic experience, something that clicks as you're running the thing. The world is etched in harsh, chaotic strokes, rendering places of worship, quiet forests, industrial sites, and almost all in soft neutrals on black. It's visually striking, sure, but serves a greater narrative purpose that illustrates just how much the creator both loves the medium and knows how to use it, but we'll really dig into that during the story segment. For now, combat pairs well with the aesthetics for pretty obvious reasons. I'll just say it straight, combat slaps. You've got light attacks and a heavy attack, and a little familiar you can shoot bullets and things out of. There's a dodge and really not much else, and that's beautiful. I've heard the game called Souls-like before, and I don't think that's really accurate. You don't drop experience inside of a recoverable corpse on death. Enemies aren't actually so punishing that a single random encounter will take you out if you're unaware. It's much more akin to the hardcore action lineage, simplified, crunched down. Attacking shares the same resource bar as your dodge and your run, the stamina bar, meaning your attacks and mobility have to be deliberate. You are not a god. Your projectiles are tied to a separate bar that builds up with successful strikes, meaning the goal is, ultimately, to combo it out, shoot some shots, and hold up some stamina to dodge when necessary. Or you could die like a fucking idiot, or you could be me and just mash attacks and gunshots into an enemy like a fucking idiot, and the game will teach you quick. You'll notice your own attacks are fairly abstract, these wispy contrails of color streaking out towards foes, and they attack same as you, only bigger, generally speaking. It's sometimes hard to know where an attack will land in physical space, and they're quick to boot, so get up close and personal and carve them to pieces while threatening an aggressive dodge. If you land the perfect dodge into an attack, you'll parry, leaving enemies vulnerable to a crunchy charged attack. And even if you can't handle parries, no problem, you can just break them, leaving them just about as vulnerable by landing successive attacks. It's a fast, frenetic, ass-rippingly violent system that really sucks you into the experience, so go out and rip asses. If you need health, you can find health packs. If you need to restart an entire encounter, hey, whoa, there's a rewind consumable that'll give you another pass at any given fight as long as you activate the thing before you die, making them great for learning movesets guilt and death free. Amazing mechanic, really, especially in a fast action game. How to not die? Like with Texas freeway drivers, the game preempted any potential gamers with an aversion to the rearview mirror with a passive ability that lets you take lethal damage a couple of times and stay alive anyhow. All kinds of passive skills can be found and equipped to change how your character fundamentally functions. And if you like customization, wait till you hear about mantras. You can find, earn, whatever, a series of alternate attack styles, short-ranged and damaging, low-ranged and weak, multi-hitting. I may have stuck with the short-range high-damage one and loaded like all of my level-up points into attack whenever I could because
holy shit.
But the game let me have that choice. It understands the joy of the medium, finding your way in your particular brand of paint streaks. Whatever, because it's cool. Nothing utterly game-warping, but that subtle variation is the beauty of choice. It's worth noting that the game will reward you for exploring the world. You're often given optional paths or rooms to explore, little side content pieces as well, and they tend to pony up the rewards. New mantras, new familiars, all of that. It's fun, and if you want to just race to the finish, nobody's stopping you. Miss all the side content you like, that's fine. the world ends with you. And literally, too. The story is pretty scattered, but it's exactly what you make of it. Much like the visuals, much like the combat, the plot is delivered in choppy, flashing moments, abstracted cutscenes, broken line deliveries, actual poetry. Though the intentions are clearly artistic and the message crafted, the actual content the player receives is fervid and unhinged, the desperate cries of a person grappling with feelings too loud to suppress, that threaten to overwhelm and corrupt completely. We're not given a lot to go on textually, but we do know that the protagonist is, quote, marked, a person in search of salvation or closure for some past trauma, who slowly succumbs to corruption over the course of the game. The entire thing is laced with religious verbiage and pointed critique of, if not faith, then organized religion, with cultists actually flagellating themselves, insane priests, just a truly grim look at the institution, and fair enough. According to this page, the game does, in fact, explore themes of Catholic guilt, among other things. I can't speak to any personal experience with the Catholic Church, but the critique of religiosity hits regardless. The human species has always lived through profoundly cruel times, and don't let anyone tell you different. Almost all to do with conflict that, traditionally, faith was used to justify or affirm otherwise. Some of the implications regarding the protagonist are particularly dark, and more or less directly condemn organized faith for enabling people who abuse their status. Where is God when one of his own irreparably damages the life or lives of those he's meant to guide? Aesthetically, it veers on edginess, but not in the negative sense. I can see someone hurling it as a loose criticism, but I think it's done pretty pointedly. It says its piece and wraps up. The corruption meter will tick up constantly, not fast enough that you'll be fully corrupted by the end, unless you're really slacking, but the pressure is always on, regardless, threatening to consume you. It advances with each death as well, making rewinds necessary for difficult encounters, alongside, engaging with its systems. Good game design trick there, love that. And the game can end a couple of ways. In general, you're expected to play multiple times, to collect mantras you missed, explore forgotten areas you blew past, that kind of thing, but also to access the full birth of the story. As I write this, I find myself not wanting to spoil the events of the plot or the game at all, especially with the sequel on the way, in case it diminishes anyone's experience. It's relatively small, not much is out there online about the game, and that's a bit of a shame. I appreciate the game's commitment to showing, through its mechanics and visuals, a traumatized mind struggling to keep things together, to even perceive reality how it should be. I love how it implies, through its endings and replay potential, that your life, your story is ultimately in your hands, that you can carve your own path, and that there won't always be a rewind, so you should treasure what little you have when you have it. Death of a Wish releases soon, so I checked out the demo. It directly follows up on the story of the first game and expands things exactly how you'd expect for a proper sequel, a more thorough commitment to story with a winding introduction that sets the tone convincingly, ups the edge, establishes who you are, what you're doing, and further refines the already solid core of the original. No incessant need to play the original here, but it will inform the game more thoroughly, and you'll see plenty of familiar faces. Since I haven't played the full game, I can't commentate its full potential meaningfully, but it seems more aggressive in general with a greater reliance on parrying, though it feels easier to land consistently. Bosses seem much more intentionally designed, not simply small narrative-driven duels and Omega-Chonk nightmare creatures, but proper action game battles, and I can't wait to see what they do with them. I found it very challenging coming off the original, but in these kinds of games there's always a path, always hope, as long as you stick around to find it. I can say after reading Steam reviews that the preceding title was handmade to sniper shot through the heart a certain kind of person. And if my own experience and others are worth going by, you can trust Death of a Wish to deliver as well.